Emma was a 27-year-old woman who appeared to have it all together. Her social media painted a picture of a vibrant, happy life. She frequently posted snapshots of her adventures, her favorite cafes, and smiling selfies captioned with optimistic quotes. But beneath the curated feed, Emma felt a gnawing emptiness. Moving to Los Angeles 2 years ago for her marketing job had been a professional milestone, but it left her far from her family and lifelong friends. Her days were filled with work, and her nights were consumed by a deep sense of isolation. Each evening, Emma would return to her small apartment, greeted by silence. She'd scroll endlessly on her phone, looking at other people's seemingly perfect lives, which only magnified her loneliness. Despite being surrounded by people at work, she felt invisible. Her colleagues were polite but distant, and she found it hard to form meaningful connections in the bustling city. One particularly quiet Friday night, Emma sat on her couch, staring at the dim glow of her phone. Her mind wandered to an idea she had been toying with for weeks: downloading a dating app. She'd heard stories about people finding love online, but the thought of putting herself out there terrified her. What if she met someone dangerous? What if she embarrassed herself? Despite her fears, the longing for companionship outweighed her hesitation. She opened the App Store, downloaded a popular dating app, and began setting up her profile. Emma spent hours curating her profile, carefully selecting her best photos and writing a bio that captured her personality. Marketing professional. Coffee lover. Amateur photographer. Always up for an adventure, she typed, before hesitating and deleting the last sentence. After several revisions, she finally hit save. Her heart raced as she started swiping through profiles, cautiously liking a few that caught her attention. Days passed, and Emma matched with a few men. She exchanged messages with them, but none of the conversations sparked anything meaningful. Just as she began doubting her decision, a new notification popped up: a match with someone named James. She clicked on his profile and felt an immediate connection. James was strikingly handsome, with deep brown eyes and a smile that exuded warmth. His bio mentioned his love for traveling, cooking, and photography, all things Emma adored. Taking a deep breath, she sent him a simple message: "Hi James. I love your photos. Are they from your travels?" To her surprise, James replied almost instantly. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and Emma found herself laughing at his witty jokes and feeling genuinely understood for the first time in a long while. James was attentive, asking about her interests, her work, and her dreams. He shared stories of his adventures abroad, painting vivid pictures of exotic locations and thrilling experiences. "I'd love to take you on an adventure someday," he said during one of their late-night phone calls. Emma couldn't help but smile. After a week of texting and talking on the phone, James asked Emma out for coffee. Nervous but excited, she agreed. The morning of their date, Emma stood in front of her closet, trying on several outfits before settling on a casual yet chic dress. Her hands trembled slightly as she applied her makeup, her thoughts racing with both excitement and anxiety. When Emma arrived at the coffee shop, James was already waiting for her. He stood as she approached, greeting her with a warm smile and a bouquet of daisies. "I thought these might brighten your day," he said, handing her the flowers. Emma felt her cheeks flush as she thanked him. Over coffee, they talked for hours, sharing stories, laughter, and even a few vulnerable moments. James was as charming in person as he had been online, and Emma felt an instant connection. The coffee date marked the beginning of a whirlwind romance. Over the next few weeks, Emma and James spent more time together. They went on dinner dates, explored local art galleries, and even enjoyed a sunset walk along the beach. James had a way of making Emma feel special, showering her with compliments and thoughtful gestures. For the first time in years, Emma felt truly seen and valued. One evening, as they strolled through a park under the soft glow of string lights, James suggested they take their relationship to the next level. "How about a trip?" he asked, his eyes lighting up with excitement. "Thailand has been on my bucket list for ages. The beaches, the temples, the food, it's an adventure waiting to happen. I'd love to share it with you." Emma's initial reaction was a mix of excitement and hesitation. A trip to Thailand sounded like a dream, but it also felt sudden. "I don't know," she said cautiously. "It's a big step, and we haven't known each other for that long." James took her hands in his and looked into her eyes. "I understand," he said gently. "But sometimes, the best experiences come from taking a leap of faith. You mean a lot to me, Emma, and I want to create memories with you. No pressure, though. Think about it." Emma spent the next few days mulling over his proposal. She confided in her best friend, Lily, who was both excited and concerned. "He seems amazing, but are you sure it's safe?" Lily asked. "Traveling abroad with someone you've only known for a few weeks is a big deal." Emma couldn't deny Lily's concerns, but her heart told her to trust James. He had been nothing but kind and respectful, and the thought of exploring Thailand with him was thrilling. After much deliberation, she decided to take the leap. "You're right, Lily," she said during their phone call. "It is a big deal. But I've been playing it safe my whole life. Maybe it's time I took a chance." James was overjoyed when Emma told him she was in. They began planning their trip together, booking flights, selecting hotels, and creating an itinerary filled with adventure and romance. Emma's excitement grew with each passing day. She shopped for new clothes, researched the best spots in Thailand, and daydreamed about the memories they would make. As the departure date approached, Emma couldn't help but feel a mix of anticipation and nervousness. She knew this trip was a turning point, not just in her relationship with James but in her life. Little did she know, the journey she had hoped would bring her closer to love would soon lead her into unimaginable danger. If you're liking this story so far, please give a like to this video and subscribe to our channel now. Moving forward. Emma could hardly contain her excitement as she boarded the plane to Thailand with James. It was her first trip to Southeast Asia, and she felt a mix of nervousness and exhilaration. James was attentive throughout the flight, holding her hand during takeoff and whispering reassurances when turbulence made her uneasy. "This trip is going to be unforgettable," he said with a warm smile. Emma believed him, though she couldn't have anticipated just how true those words would become. When they arrived in Bangkok, Emma was immediately enchanted by the city's vibrant energy. The streets were alive with color and sound, neon signs flashing in Thai script, street vendors shouting their offerings, and the spicy aroma of sizzling food carts wafting through the humid air. James seemed to know his way around, confidently guiding her through the chaotic city. Their first few days were magical. They visited the ornate Grand Palace, took a boat ride along the Chao Phraya River, and explored bustling night markets where Emma tasted pad thai cooked right in front of her. James was the perfect travel companion, attentive, charming, and seemingly as enamored with her as she was with him. Emma began to feel like she was living in a dream. But by their third day, subtle cracks began to appear in the idyllic facade. At breakfast in their hotel, James received a phone call and stepped away to answer it. When he returned, his face was slightly tense. Emma asked who had called, but he brushed it off with a vague answer about work. "Nothing to worry about," he said with a disarming smile, but Emma noticed his mood had shifted. Later that evening, as they strolled through the streets of Bangkok, a man approached James and whispered something in his ear. The interaction was brief, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that it was significant. "Who was that?" she asked once the man walked away. "Just a guy trying to sell me fake watches," James replied smoothly, but his tone was too casual, almost rehearsed. Emma chose not to press further, telling herself she was overthinking things. From Bangkok, they flew to Phuket, a tropical paradise with stunning beaches and turquoise waters. James had planned everything, from a private villa with an infinity pool to romantic dinners under the stars. On their first day, they took a speedboat tour of the nearby islands, snorkeling in crystal-clear water and lounging on pristine sandy beaches. Emma tried to push aside her lingering doubts, immersing herself in the beauty of their surroundings and the warmth of James's affection. But the uneasy feelings returned with greater force. One afternoon, while James was out arranging a surprise, Emma noticed that her phone had been tampered with. Her passcode no longer worked, and it took her several tries to regain access. When she finally got in, she saw that her photo gallery had been opened. Alarmed, she confronted James when he returned, but he laughed it off. "I was just trying to find the picture of us at the market," he said, pulling her into an embrace. "I didn't mean to freak you out." His explanation made sense, but Emma couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. As the days went on, James's behavior grew more peculiar. He often stepped away to take phone calls, speaking in hushed tones. When Emma asked about it, he always had a ready excuse: work, travel arrangements, or dealing with vendors. Yet, there were moments when she caught him staring at her with an intensity that made her stomach churn. It wasn't the look of a man in love, it was something darker, more calculating. The turning point came during a private dinner at their villa. The evening started beautifully, with James surprising Emma with a table set up by the beach, adorned with candles and flowers. Over the meal, they reminisced about their trip so far and talked about their dreams for the future. But as the night wore on, James's demeanor shifted. "Have you ever thought about trying something different?" he asked, swirling his glass of wine. "Different how?" Emma replied, sensing a strange edge to his voice. "I mean, spicing things up. Maybe bringing someone else into our relationship?" Emma froze, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "Are you serious?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It's just an idea," James said, leaning back in his chair. "A lot of couples do it. It could be fun." Emma felt a wave of anger and confusion. "I'm not interested in that," she said firmly, pushing her chair back. "Why would you even suggest something like that?" James sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Relax, Emma. It was just a suggestion. Don't take it so seriously." But Emma couldn't relax. The man she thought she knew had suddenly revealed a side of himself that felt alien and threatening. That night, as she lay in bed beside him, she found it impossible to sleep. Her mind raced with doubts and fears, replaying every strange moment from their trip. The next morning, James acted as if nothing had happened, showering Emma with compliments and making plans for another day of sightseeing. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. When James stepped out for another errand, she decided to do some investigating. She went through his bag, something she had never done before, feeling a pang of guilt even as she unzipped it. Inside, she found a notebook filled with handwritten notes in Thai, a language she couldn't read. She also found an envelope containing a large sum of cash. Her heart pounded as she realized she had no idea who James really was. Emma's unease turned to panic when she overheard a conversation James was having on the phone later that day. He was speaking in English, but the words were chilling. "Yes, she's perfect. Everything's on track." Emma knew she had to leave, but she couldn't act rashly. She needed a plan, and she needed help. The panic that had been building inside her now felt like a tidal wave, overwhelming every rational thought. She had trusted James, believed him when he said that this trip would be an unforgettable adventure. But it had turned into a nightmare, one she couldn't escape. She watched as James and his accomplice stepped closer, the door of the room clicking shut behind them with a chilling finality. Her heart raced. The man beside James had a cruel smile on his face, and Emma felt her knees weaken. The look in James's eyes had changed from affection to something far darker. Something she had never seen before. "I don't understand," Emma said, voice trembling as she backed away. "What's going on?" "What are you doing to me?" James, standing just a few feet away, crossed his arms and leaned against the wall casually, as if this were all a game to him. "You've been good, Emma. But you don't know the whole story. This isn't just a vacation, it's a business trip, my business." Emma felt like the world had spun out of control. "Business," she echoed, incredulous. "What are you talking about?" Before she could make sense of what he was saying, the other man, a burly figure with a cold expression, grabbed her arm, forcing her to move. "Enough talking," he said gruffly. "You'll understand soon enough." Emma's breath hitched as she tried to pull away, but he was too strong. James didn't intervene, he just watched her, his gaze cold and unfeeling. She was dragged out of the room, the door slamming behind her. The hallways were dimly lit, with the smell of old wood and stale air hanging in the thick atmosphere. They moved quickly, and Emma had no idea where they were going. She wasn't allowed to ask questions, and any attempts to struggle were met with harsh shoves and cruel glares. Panic spread through her veins as her mind raced. Was this really happening? Was she being kidnapped? She was taken to a small, run-down building on the outskirts of Bangkok. It didn't look like anything more than a dilapidated structure from the outside, but the interior told a different story. Emma was shoved into a cramped, sterile room with no windows, no personal items, just a narrow bed and a single, flickering light bulb overhead. Her heart sank as she realized what was happening. "This is where you'll stay for a while," the man said, his tone flat. He slammed the door shut behind him, and the sound of the lock turning made Emma's breath catch in her throat. For the next few days, Emma's life became a blur of confusion and fear. She was given little to no information about her situation and was kept in the room for the majority of the day. James would visit sporadically, but his presence no longer offered the comfort it once had. He wasn't the man she had known, the one who made her feel safe. He was cold, distant, and unrecognizable. He didn't even look at her with affection anymore, only a calculating, detached gaze. The days blended into each other as Emma tried to come to terms with her situation. She had never felt more isolated in her life. She was completely cut off from the outside world, unable to make contact with anyone. There were no phones, no computers, nothing. The only sounds she could hear were the faint noises of the other women in the building, their muffled sobs and whispered conversations behind closed doors. It was clear to Emma that she wasn't the only one trapped here. Her isolation was only broken when the door would open to reveal the man who had captured her, and then James would appear, his face as unreadable as ever. He never spoke much, offering only vague reassurances that everything was going according to plan. But Emma knew better. This wasn't a vacation, and James was no longer the man she had thought him to be. He had sold her. The realization hit her like a slap in the face. The man she had trusted had betrayed her in the worst way imaginable. For money. On the fifth day, Emma's worst fears were confirmed. She was informed, through a short, cruel message from the other man, that she had been sold. In exchange for $50,000, Emma's freedom had been traded for cash. Tears blurred her vision as she sank to the floor. She didn't know how to process this. How could she? She had been in love with James. How could he have done this to her? She felt an overwhelming sense of loss. This wasn't just physical captivity. Her heart had been captured, too. Days turned into weeks. Emma was forced into a life she never imagined for herself. She was made to do things she couldn't believe, serving the desires of men who paid for her time. She was locked away, not allowed to use a phone, not allowed to have any contact with the outside world. The guard who monitored her every movement was relentless, his watchful eyes always on her, making sure she couldn't escape or make any calls. Every day, Emma cried. She cried for herself, for the life she had lost, for the future that had been stolen from her. The women around her were too broken to comfort her, and Emma felt more alone than ever. But amidst her grief, something inside her hardened. She would not let this be the end of her story. She would not let James win. It was on the 40th day of her captivity that Emma saw a glimmer of hope. A tourist, a man who seemed completely out of place in this grim setting, walked through the door, looking around nervously. He was tall, his clothing clearly marking him as a visitor to the country. Emma knew this was her chance. She didn't hesitate. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Can you help me? I need a phone. Please, I need to call my family." The man looked around warily, unsure of what was happening. "What are you talking about? What's going on here?" Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she leaned closer. "I've been kidnapped. I'm being held here against my will. I need to contact my family. They're looking for me. Please, I need your help." The man hesitated for a moment, his gaze shifting to the doorway where a guard stood, watching them. He seemed unsure, but when he saw the desperation in Emma's eyes, he relented. He reached into his pocket and handed her his mobile phone. Emma wasted no time. She dialed her sister's number, her hands shaking with anticipation. The phone rang for what felt like an eternity before her sister's familiar voice answered. "Emma? Is that you?" her sister asked, a tone of disbelief in her voice. "Yes, it's me," Emma sobbed, unable to hold back her tears. "I'm in Thailand. I've been kidnapped. James sold me. I need help." Her sister's voice cracked. "Oh my God. I'm going to call the police. I'm going to contact the embassy. I'm going to do everything I can. Just stay strong. Please, stay strong." The call ended abruptly, but Emma felt a sliver of hope. Help was coming. It wasn't too late. She wasn't alone anymore. Emma waited with bated breath, counting the minutes that stretched into hours. She didn't know what was happening outside, but she trusted her sister. She had to. Her sister had already contacted the authorities and the embassy. Emma's only hope now was that they could find her before it was too late. The next evening, Emma heard shouting in the hallway outside her room. It was chaotic, frantic, and when she heard the door to her room slam open, her heart nearly stopped. "Emma," a man's voice called urgently. "Emma Woods?" She sprang to her feet, unable to believe what was happening. It was the police. "Yes, that's me," Emma cried, rushing to the door. Please help me." The officers stormed into the room, taking control of the situation immediately. They told Emma to follow them, and she didn't hesitate for a second. The officers escorted her out of the building, their presence overwhelming and reassuring at the same time. Emma couldn't stop shaking. She was going to be okay. Once in a secure location, the officers began questioning her about the events that led to her captivity. They took down every detail she could remember, asking her to describe James and the man who had sold her. She recounted every moment, every conversation, and every fear she had experienced during her time in captivity. The more she told them, the more she realized the depth of her ordeal. But the investigation didn't stop with Emma's testimony. The police began searching for James and his accomplices, but when they checked every record, every database, they found nothing. No one by the name of James existed in Thailand or California with the description Emma had given. The man she had trusted was a ghost, someone who had created a false identity to manipulate and deceive her. The police worked tirelessly to track him down, but in the end, James remained elusive, a mystery that might never be solved. Emma was returned to California, a place that no longer felt like home. The trauma she had endured was still fresh in her mind, and though she was physically free, the emotional scars would take time to heal. But Emma was determined not to let her story end in darkness. She spoke out, raising awareness about human trafficking and the dangers of trusting strangers online. Her sister, along with organizations that fought human trafficking, helped Emma channel her pain into something meaningful. She became an advocate, speaking at events and sharing her story to prevent others from falling victim to the same fate. She used her voice to expose the dangers of a world that could be so deceitful, and though the man she had loved had disappeared into the shadows, Emma knew that her story could help bring others to light. Though the police never found James, Emma had found something much more valuable: her strength, her voice, and the knowledge that she had survived. And in doing so, she had found a way to help others survive too. Not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions. Emma's story is a powerful reminder that trust must be earned, not given blindly. Always stay cautious, especially when it comes to online interactions and meeting people you don't know well. What seemed like the perfect relationship turned into a nightmare for her, but her strength and determination helped her escape. Remember, your safety and well-being should always come first. Don't trust everyone, protect yourself and be aware of the risks out there. If you've enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more. Thank you for watching.